Travel down any street, be it in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, or Needles, California, and 9 chances out of 10, you'll find some people talking about cars. Take a married couple like the Parkers, for example. They've been reading and hearing about new cars in newspapers, magazines, and on TV and radio. And they've probably been getting literature from practically every dealership in their area. So let's just listen in.
Say, this Chevy looks like a pretty sharp car. What do you think, Mad? Shall we take a look at it?
Well, it doesn't cost anything to look. Besides, I've got my work all finished, so why don't we go right now?
And so, at the local Chevrolet dealership, the Parkers learn all about the new Chevy.
Thank you for showing us the new Chevrolet. It's a nice car, and it looks well built. But we'd like to look at the Plymouth and the Dart before we decide.
Well, folks, you don't have to go to a Plymouth dealer for that, because we have a 1960 Plymouth that we took in trade just the other day. Suppose we look at it, and you can see how it compares with the Chevrolet. There's the 1960 Plymouth Belvedere 4-door sedan. Now, this car is comparable to the Bel Air we just looked at. The Plymouth is a good car, but many people are disappointed in the styling. Remember when Plymouth came out in 1957 and said, suddenly it's 1960? Well, many people think the 1960 Plymouth looks almost like the 57. Some of them say, suddenly it's 1957 when they look at this year's model. Contrast that to the tremendous changes in the Chevrolet since 1957. The 1960 Chevrolet is a completely new car. It's 1.4 inches longer and 2.2 inches wider than the Plymouth, but size is only one area in which we believe Chevrolet offers you more for your money. Now, I've already explained many Chevrolet features to you, but for easy comparison by you, I'll repeat some of them now. For example, Chevrolet's 3-piece bumpers have built-in bumper guards, front and rear. And 3-piece bumper construction saves you money because only one section has to be replaced in case of damage. Now, Plymouth's 1-piece bumpers have no built-in guards, and the whole bumper must be replaced in case of damage. And notice how Plymouth's front bumper dips down there, exposing more of the grille to damage. Just run your hand over Chevy's smooth, durable magic mirror lacquer finish, which doesn't have to be polished for up to 3 years. In case of scratches, only the damaged area has to be replaced. As usual, Plymouth has enamel, which isn't as smooth. It's very much like an orange peel. And enamel costs more to repair than lacquer because the whole panel has to be refinished. The rich carpeting inside the Bel Air has vinyl-coated rubber inserts in the areas where you rest your feet for maximum protection against wear. In the Plymouth Belvedere, you get rubber floor mats.
I've read about Plymouth's tilted engine. What's that supposed to mean?
Well, we've checked that with some of our factory and service people. All that Plymouth has done is to tilt a 6-cylinder engine 30 degrees to the right. This causes more of the engine weight to be on the right side of the car. Now, this could result in front-end unbalance, uneven tire wear, and erratic steering. The Chevrolet High Thrift 6 engine is vertical, so that weight is distributed evenly between the front wheels. And the High Thrift 6 has hydraulic valve lifters which stay quiet without periodic adjustment. Plymouth's 6-cylinder engine has mechanical valve lifters that require adjustments to keep them quiet. And here's something else. The Chevrolet High Thrift 6 has a piston stroke that's nearly 5% shorter than the Plymouth 6. And the less distance the pistons travel, the less the friction and wear on cylinders, cylinder walls, and piston rings. Another thing to consider is that Chevrolet's High Thrift 6 is a thoroughly tested and proved engine with a reputation for long life, dependability, and economy. On the other hand, Plymouth's 6-cylinder engine is new and hasn't yet proved itself in use by the public. Of course, many people prefer V8 engines. Here again, Chevrolet offers more. You can choose from 7 V8 engines ranging from 170 to 335 horsepower. Plymouth offers only 4 V8 engines, 230, 260, 305, or 330 horsepower. As I said before, Mr. Parker, A short piston stroke lowers an engine's operating costs. Now keep in mind that all Chevy V8s have shorter strokes than Plymouth V8s. And independent valve operation gives all Chevy V8s more efficiency. Each rocker arm rocks on its own ball and socket joint, so the valves operate independently. But Plymouth V8 rocker arms are mounted on the same shaft, so the faulty operation of one valve can offset the others.
I read in an ad that Plymouth has a new way to save gas.
Yes, I know what you mean. They call it sonoramic induction. It's just another name for Plymouth's intake manifolds. Sure, it may save gas, but it still has to be proved on the road. Chevrolet's gasoline economy has been proved over the years. And it's easy to see that Chevrolet V8s save money on oil. Chevy V8s need 4 quarts of oil at each change. Plymouth V8s take 5 quarts. In a year's time, this adds up to some real money savings with Chevy. Now, Mr. Parker, better engines aren't the only reason for Chevrolet's better performance. With Chevy, you also get a better selection of transmissions for the exact type of power you want. If you want the most miles per gallon, you can get Chevy's Overdrive. On the other hand, if you like the fun of shifting with maximum performance, you can get a 4-speed manual transmission with floor-mounted shift lever. With Plymouth, you can't get Overdrive or a 4-speed manual transmission.
But so many people tell me that Plymouth's push buttons are so easy to use.
Yes, Mrs. Parker, Plymouth's push buttons are convenient, but you're right-handed like the majority of us. It's a little awkward to reach and poke with your left hand at Plymouth's buttons on the dash panel. Just try Chevy's easy-to-use selector lever with both Power Glide and Turbo Glide. It's more convenient because it's at the right of the steering column. And Chevrolet's famous Turbo Glide gives you the smoothness of 3 oil-driven turbines. You feel no shifts of any kind. With Plymouth's Power Flight and Torque Flight, you feel noticeable shifts. The grade retarder on Turbo Glide is especially designed for use going downhill. It gives you positive braking and safer control. But Plymouth's Power Flight and Torque Flight use a low gear arrangement to slow the car when going down hills. I'm sure you've heard about Chevrolet's smooth riding and handling.
Well, yes, but I've also heard a lot about Plymouth's Torsion Air.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Torsion Air is the name Plymouth uses for its steel torsion bars in the front suspension. Now, these bars are just another form of springing and have no air in them. The Chevrolet has a big coil spring at each of the 4 wheels, plus an advanced 4-link rear suspension system. Now, these give you softer and smoother riding as well as better stability. Besides, these coil springs can't squeak and never need to be oiled. The Plymouth still uses old-fashioned leaf springs at the rear. Leaf springs are overworked and can't do as good a job of smoothing out the bumps. Besides, they often get squeaky after rain or snow. And if you're interested in a station wagon or a convertible, you'll find another Chevrolet ride advantage in the 800 by 14 tires, which are standard equipment on all Chevy station wagons and convertibles. These larger tires are standard only on Plymouth 9-passenger wagons. Remember, too, that Chevrolet gives you 1 inch more road clearance, which represents 20% more clearance than Plymouth. And Chevrolet gives you a 1 inch longer wheelbase in passenger cars. These are more reasons why Chevy rides and handles better than Plymouth. And you'll like Chevy's smooth and easy ball-bearing steering. Plymouth uses the old-fashioned worm and roller steering gear, which makes steering more difficult. Now, look at Chevrolet's big windshield and windows. You get more visibility in this Chevy for safer driving. In 4-door sedans, Chevy has 165 more square inches of windshield, 209 more square inches of rear window, and 620 more square inches of total glass than Plymouth. And Chevrolet has safety plate glass all around for clearer viewing. With Plymouth, you get safety plate glass in the windshield, but only ordinary safety glass in side windows. Here's something I've heard people complain about in Plymouth, and that's the low-positioned rear-view mirror. It blocks your vision in the front and makes it hard to see what's behind the car when there are passengers in the car. Chevrolet's rear-view mirror is mounted at the top of the windshield for better visibility both front and rear, and that's very important for safer driving.
Plymouth is supposed to have good brakes.
Yes, Plymouth does have good brakes, but Chevrolet's brakes have some new features for 1960, making them the best in the low-price field. Let me explain. As you may know, Mr. Parker, a car's weight shifts to the front when you step on the brakes. This causes the front wheels to carry more weight than the rear ones. So you can see why the front brakes should have more stopping power for safer stops. This is why Chevy makes the front wheel cylinders larger than the rear ones. And Chevy's front wheel cylinders are larger than Plymouth's. As a matter of fact, Plymouth uses the same size cylinders front and rear. Besides, Chevrolet has 15.5 square inches more brake lining area than the Plymouth. And the 1960 Chevrolet gives you more room for extra comfort. For example, in four-door sedans, Chevrolet has 2.3 inches more front hip room and slightly more front shoulder and head room than the Plymouth. In the rear, Chevy has 4.4 inches more leg room, 3 inches more hip room, and slightly more head room. The Chevrolet even has more trunk room than Plymouth. You get 2.4 cubic feet more than in a Plymouth.
We've read about Plymouth's unibody. Can you tell me about it?
Unibody is the name Plymouth uses for its frame and body construction. The frame is built into the body. This is good, but Plymouth doesn't go quite far enough. It still uses a stub frame to support the engine and transmission, and this shorty frame is bolted to the body. But we believe that in this conventional Chevrolet, we have a better method of frame and body construction. Chevrolet has a full-length safety girder frame with a massive center beam. Mounted on this frame is a specially designed body by Fisher with big double-section body sills. And folks, here's something else you'll like to know. A cigarette lighter is standard on our less expensive models, the Biscaynes, but it's extra cost in comparable Plymouth models. And Chevy gives you more convenient and usable things as standard equipment to make your driving and riding more enjoyable. Every Chevrolet has crank-operated ventipanes, one-key locking, self-locking front doors, and ignition switch at the right of the steering column for convenient right-hand use. Well, Plymouth just doesn't have these convenience features in any model. And you get the comfort of foam cushioned front and rear seats in Bel Airs and Impalas at no extra cost. All Plymouth models have cotton padded rear seats. You can get a foam rubber rear seat cushion in Plymouth Fury models if you want to pay extra, but not in any other Plymouth model. And if you like to carry many things in the glove box, you'll like all the room in Chevys. You get a lock in all models and an automatic light in Bel Airs and Impalas as standard equipment. You can see that Plymouth's glove box is about half the size of Chevrolet's, and you have to pay extra for a lock in Savoy and Belvedere models. Besides, you can't even get an automatic light in any Plymouth model, even if you wanted to pay extra for it. And if you were interested in one of our luxury models, either one of the Impalas or the Nomad station wagon, you'd find we have backup lights, parking brake warning lights, armrest safety reflectors, and anodized aluminum front seat end panels. You pay extra for backup lights in the Plymouth. However, a warning light, safety reflectors, or aluminum seat end panels are not available in any Plymouth model. Now, most Chevrolet and Plymouth models are comparable in basic price, but you could get a Chevrolet Bel Air sport sedan for $102 less than Plymouth's lowest price sports sedan. And Chevrolet gives you the Kingswood 9-passenger station wagon for $140 less than Plymouth's lowest priced 9-passenger wagon. Here's another very important thing that you, as new car buyers, should definitely know. Chevy's worth more when you trade. When you compare 3-year-old models, Chevrolet Bel Airs are worth $160 more than Plymouth Belvederes. Now, that's using Red Book valuation figures. So you save money on Chevrolet when you buy, while you drive, and when you trade. Now, let me tell you a little about the new Dart, which is built by Dodge. Actually, the Dart is part Dodge and part Plymouth. It uses a body that looks like a Dodge, and yet it's a Plymouth underneath. Both Plymouth and Dart use the same engines and transmissions, but the interiors are differently styled. Most of Chevrolet's advantages over the Plymouth also hold over Dart. And Chevy is also a bigger car, both outside and inside. In addition, Chevy gives you more exclusive features. We covered them before, such things as magic mirror finish, crank-operated Ventapanes, 4-link rear suspension, and coil springs all around. And Chevy costs from $16 to $43 less. That's comparing factory list prices of comparable models with V8 engines. That means you get all the extra values in Chevrolet over Dart at lower prices. I certainly appreciate the opportunity you've given me to present the new Chevrolet and to point out the differences between it and the Plymouth and Dart. I hope I've given you a clear idea of the greater values offered in the new Chevrolet and the fact that there's a lot to consider before you decide.
Yes, there's a lot for prospects to compare and consider. Ask your prospects to compare the 1960 Chevrolet with the Plymouth and Dart by any yardstick. You have the facts to prove the extra values in driving and riding pleasures and lasting satisfaction in Chevrolet. So ask your prospects to step up, step in, and step out in the 1960 Chevrolet.